Good morning and welcome to my garden. I have done a big cleanup. I've done a whole stack of chop and drop in preparation for going away for 5 weeks. I wanted to get on top of my chop and drop so that it didn't take over and so that things didn't seed out of control. Over on the northern side, we've had some complete chop and drop resets for each of the beds. Contour 1 here on the north. This bed I chopped and dropped 10 days ago. My main chop and drop plants were pigeon pea. The callistemon had some branches I could take down, and there were some other plants along here that were a little bit taller. I learned that my Braina is not suitable for chop and drop. It had not grown any at all since the previous chop and drop session, and it looked like it was being smothered by the arrowroot and lemongrass and the pigeon pea, and it just didn't cope. So this has already collapsed down some. It's now half the height of what it was when I laid it. Contour 2 on the north, I chopped and dropped that yesterday morning. So this is 1 day old. I didn't have so much biomass here to take down. Most of the plants along here are not good chop and drop candidates. The basil had quite a bit of biomass on it. However, it also had some flowers on it, which ideally should be left for the bees and the other insects. So in the future, I probably won't do such a harsh chop and drop with basil when it's flowering. Also, the salvia had quite a lot of biomass on it, and that became part of the chop and drop row. Again, I think I should leave the flowers on for the insects. There was some arrowroot along this row and some pigeon pea here. And you can see how it's all been chopped and dropped and laid on the row. It really does look lovely and clean when it's all chopped and dropped. I love a fresh chop and drop. I love the lush as well. I'm very grateful for the different seasons, the different times, different things need to happen in a garden. Now, contour 3 on the north. This is the first time this bed has received a complete chop and drop. I had a cover crop planted along here and I had not chopped that at all. And it was growing up into this poinciana tree here. And that was creating a tremendous amount of shade for these potatoes along here. And a lot of my potatoes were dying off early. So this row has had its chop and drop now. And already in 2 days, that has started to compact down. I've included the sticks, the branches, some of the logs from the poinciana, and all the leaf that came off. The weeds that I pulled out from around the fig plants there behind it, that's all been added to that row. And that's a lot of biomass there now. So much so that it's wider than I usually have a chop and drop row. When we get home from our 5 weeks away, I'll be planting some chop and drop plants along here. Along this end of contour 3 on the north, pigeon pea was again the dominant chop and drop plant. It was probably 4 meters tall and it was fully in seed. So that's going to be interesting to see how much seed regrows from the chop and drop. And once again, it's all nicely cleaned up, all under control again, ready for it to grow wild again. It makes such a difference to the garden when you chop and drop. And it's part of what needs to happen to keep a garden healthy. You need to add compost. You need to add mulch. Plants that are growing and coming to the end of their life can be rejuvenated by a good prune. And I know I've pruned these pigeon pea very strongly, but they will grow back. It's made for the garden to be very open now, and I can look through and see all the different beds and what's going on there. The shade from the poinciana and from the cover crop were shading the potatoes and avocados, and shade can lead to mold and fungus diseases. And if I want to get good produce from the potatoes, the shade would not help. I've also chopped and dropped around the shed here. You can see the amount of organic matter on the ground is significant. And that's what the cover crop was meant to do. The roots went down into the ground and would help work on the clay. The leaves and the branches and the stems would cover the surface and help to protect it from drying out. So it's in much better condition than it was. So this is where I put all the chop and drop from around the shed. I placed it in the row between the mangoes, so now it's a continual row, which will actually make the mowing job a lot easier. Help to keep the ground between the mangoes weed free, help to start accumulating nutrients for the mangoes. I had planted arrowroot in these rows. As you can see, not much keeps arrowroot down. The arrowroot will grow back through the chop and drop. There are many different ways to accumulate mulch. I appreciate being able to grow my own mulch because then I don't have to worry about bringing in weeds from other people, and it's a lot easier to spend half an hour chopping and dropping your own plants than it is to go out and get a trailer load of something and then bring it back and unload it. Yes, there is a place for animal manure, but I'm trying to investigate what kind of a value I can get from growing my own chop and drop, my own mulch, and putting it on the garden. And you can see how quickly it breaks down. This was all done here a few months ago, where I took down bananas and arrowroot and lemongrass and pumpkin plants, and I placed them all along this chop and drop row. And they have composted down really well, really fast actually. And all that is putting nutrients back into the soil